Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. I would like to begin by talking about Tina Turner, megastar, who I know meant a lot to you as she did to me, and she is the epitome of a woman who channeled the royal spirit. From beginning to end, she had the life of a person who had every right to complain and bemoan about their lot and whinge about it and live and dwell in victimhood, wear it on their sleeve, weaponize it and become embittered from it. She didn't. She channeled the royal spirit. That isn't to say that she didn't suffer, that she didn't talk about it, and that she didn't accept those parts of her story and her history, but she was a life enhancer. Yes, she was a life enhancer, not an energy vampire. She didn't suck the soul out of things with her woe is me sob stories, because we've all got one, ain't we? We've all got one. She was the epitome of channeling the royal spirit and a life enhancer. The queendom within. Yes, she was queen of rock and roll. She was a queen. Such joy she brought to us all, didn't she? In all her various installments throughout life. A different flavour for each decade. So many memories. So much fun. So much drag. So much campery, so much spirituality, serene, glamour, everything. And her talent, I always felt, was so effortless. She actually puts me in mind a similar sort of feeling to when you regard Judy Garland in performance. And you understand that she lives the role, she lives the performance, she is it. Tina does this. It's like breathing for her. A second skin. Pure joy. And it's curious because it was just a few months ago, I think I mentioned her in a broadcast, and it led me on to a bit of Googling, and I found some footage of her performing that I hadn't seen before. And I know that everybody this week will be sharing their photos of Tina, their memories. I've seen online people sharing various bits of video footage. So I wanted to share my little bit for those of you that might not have seen it. And I very much enjoyed watching it. I will put the link to it in the description box. And it is a segment of Tina dancing with Anne Margaret. It is a version of Proud Mary. They duet on Proud Mary. And I will leave the link, and if you skip ahead to about the 2-minute mark, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, around the 2 minutes, when the tempo goes up and they get going. And Tina, it's like she's dancing on hot coals. You watch her spring into life and spring into action, and she is absolutely infectious. That energy, she is possessed of a spirit. She becomes this animal on stage, this fire, and within the performance as well, she is sharing this sisterhood with Anne Margaret, and she brings out the passion in Anne Margaret, who is funking away, and it is just, if you watch it loud. If you're able to stand, get up and jive, my dear. Boogie woogie along with them, get into it, and channel the funky spirit. It's there to be enjoyed because it is life enhancing, and one of millions of flawless performances from her. Wonderful. And if there's one thing that will impress us as Brits, it's telling us how much you love us and our country. We love to hear it, because those of us who are rather old school are very proud of our nation. And if there's one way you want to get on our side, then tell us how fabulous we are, my dear. We love to hear it. But I expect that's in common with most countries, isn't it? But she loved the United Kingdom because it was very important to her for the second, well, I should say, yes, the second half of her life, I suppose you could say, her rebirth and re-emergence after years in obscurity, when she sort of reinvented herself yet again and came back to become a megastar. It was here in England where she befriended the rock stars of the day, the Mick Jaggers, David Bowie, the Rod Stewart. But throughout Europe, it was Europe that loved her and accepted her as a black rock and roll star. I don't like to bring the Duchess of Sussex's name into a conversation about Tina, but because we do discuss this and the subject of race, Meghan's complaints about what she perceived as slights against her, well, she and her husband attacked this country and this nation and our race relations. And Tina's story paints a different picture because, as I have always accepted, yes, there was racism, as there was everywhere throughout the entire world, but we had progressed so very far, and for the vast majority of the population it was not an issue. Then they made it into an issue and dragged us back decades in race, bringing new sensitivities where it wasn't necessary. And Tina's story shows you how different our story with race is to the United States. And before I talk about the United States, do know that I adore the States and Americans. I absolutely adore them, love them to bits, love the country. So don't think that I am coming for it. But this is part of Tina's story because she was rejected from the music scene. Her music was considered too white to be black, but she was too black to be white. And the way that your chart and hit parade system worked in the States during that time meant that life was very difficult for her to shift genre and to confound expectations of what an African American artist should be. So it was when she looked further afield to Europe and they embraced her from the start. And she's spoken about this many times, by the way, in case you think this is all sophistry. I'll try and put in a clip or two, if I'm able, or a headline or two. She spoke about this. You can see it on YouTube many times.
I have left America because my success was in another country, and my boyfriend was in another country. The beginning of my success in England. And basically Europe has been very supportive of my music.
More than America?
Yes. Yes, hugely.
Hugely more. Yes. But you're a major star here. You're a superstar in America.
Not as big as Madonna. I'm as big as Madonna in Europe.
And she felt the embrace of England and of Europe and of Germany, who allowed her to do what she wanted to do. She famously loved to be in the company of men, European men in particular. She was inspired by them, as they were very much inspired by her. And with regards to the Rolling Stones, also inspired, of course, by black music from America, undoubtedly. It was this wonderful fusion, this synthesis, this sharing of ideas, this creative exchange, wonderful. But interestingly, to my knowledge, Tina Turner was never outspoken on the subject of civil rights. Tina's way was to educate just by living and being the example, not lecturing and hectoring. I thought it was a very elegant way of promoting civil rights by not wearing victimhood on her sleeve, because that natural elegance, which becomes charismatic, is more powerful and speaks to more people than somebody who might be decorated in awards, from the Gracies to the Women of Vision to the Fighting Racism Awards, all this, that, and the 600th. Decorated, showering them in all their awards for all their achievements and speaking out all the time. Well, really, their effects are imperceptible. Whereas the effects of Tina Turner are tangible because people respond with love. And she didn't pee on our legs and tell us that it's raining like others do. That is authenticity and not some charade and facade. And that is why we all absolutely adored Tina Turner. What a fabulous, wonderful, sexy, thrilling, beautiful woman she was. And I'm not the only one that thought so, because Charles also thought so. He was very taken with her. She was taken with him, has always liked him very much. And in fact, she worked together with him and appeared with him for Prince's Trust events. And Diana. She also met Her Majesty the Queen. And also I noticed, when she met Prince Charles, there was no hesitation in bowing to royalty. An American woman. If you want to put that spin on it, a black American woman. Choosing, in her status as a megastar, gazillionaire, to bow to British royalty. And I think the probability is that she was actually performing a curtsy, but it is hard to tell from this clip because I can't see her feet. But how thrilling. I really do think that she chose to curtsy to Prince Charles. How absolutely elegant. And I am told often in the comments, and I don't take it as an insult to Britain. I take it totally understanding. But I am told all the time, I'm American. We don't recognize royalty. We don't bow to it. We don't. And I totally understand that. I don't expect anyone, including English people, to bow to royalty. It is a personal decision. But I think it's entirely dignified. For example, if I was visiting a tribe in Africa, or the Maori people, indigenous natives, I wouldn't say, well, we don't recognise that in England. I'm sorry, this is your own affair, so I won't be joining in with anything deferential towards you. No, my dear. With my character and my personal view, I would do whatever was expected of their people, their subjects, whatever it is, to show a mark of respect and also show that I appreciate their culture and that I am in their land. Would I look down on somebody else for not doing that, who was visiting with me? Well, it would depend on the circumstance, but certainly not always. I think that freedom is good. The freedom to choose. You know, for example, during the coronation, when we were all invited to offer our lifelong support for the king, I chose not to indulge in that. It was an invitation, it wasn't a demand. And although I consider myself pro-monarchy, I would hesitate, really, I might have used it in broadcast before, to really, I don't really identify as a royalist or monarchist, meaning that above everything else they come first. No, it is a decision to support an institution which at this current time I very much support. Ask me in 10 or 20 years' time, and things might have evolved or emerged whereby I do no longer support it. So I take vows such as that rather seriously. And I don't know how the king's life will pan out. So I am not prepared to vow allegiance to him for the rest of his life. But I did join in with God Save the King. But I appreciate the option, the extension of an invitation, invited to join in with that. So I'm just giving you an example. You know, even in my own country and for my own monarchy, it doesn't mean that I have a blind allegiance to them. But personally, I do believe in respecting the traditions of other lands and the hierarchies, and Tina Turner obviously did as well, because she would have had every opportunity not to bow. I find that really quite significant. Without chagrin, without any embarrassment, a bow. It only puts her up in my estimation as a character and as a person of joy and as a life enhancer. And as the former Prince of Wales said about Tina Turner, she is a truly wonderful lady and I adore her. And I do not want to speak on behalf of Tina Turner, because I sadly don't know her thoughts on the subject, but I would fancy that when she heard about all this mischief coming from Henry and from Rachel, she would have had a few words to say about it to her beloved. You know, her husband was slightly younger than her. Actually, their relationship puts me a little bit in mind, perhaps because of the age difference a little, between Percy Gibson and Joan Collins. Dame Joan, who turned 90, I think it was yesterday. Happy birthday, Joni dear. They have a similar sort of affection between them. Very lovely, very solid relationships that seem so very respectful. a very successful man in his own right. He ran EMI, and she moved over to Zurich in Switzerland, where she died, because that's where he was based. And as this great big megastar, she didn't hesitate to join him so that they could both thrive. And I certainly never heard any whisper of her complaining about making that decision and sacrificing her life for his, because she was the one that made that decision. So we celebrate the life of Anna May Bullock. And the thing also that was very interesting about her is that despite the fact that she would often dress up like a hooker and the pins on display and strut around, the wild hair, the smutty clothing, fabulous. One never considered her to be anything less than an absolute lady, did one? Absolute epitome of class. Despite all of that, it just goes to show, because it was her spirit, it was her character. There are other types that will make a pretense as if they are so demure and so very worthy and so very good, rush to help at the scene of any sadness and bake cookies and call themselves a duchess, but still fail to convince people that they are anything other than trash. And that reminds me, where was Meghan for her Gracie Award? The Disgracies. They took place yesterday, and there was no sign of her. For this famous award, you've all heard of the Gracies, haven't you? You know, the Disgracies. Remember them? They're huge, like a big Oscar affair, just like the Women of Vision Award. These fabulous adulations. This Gracie Award, remember, was for Best Entertainment Podcast. I wonder what she is going to do with all these awards and if she gets medals for them. Can you imagine if she is mounting them all on a big ribbon, military style, a big ribbon or an order of Markle with the Woman of Colour, Woman of Vision, Gracie Disgracie, all lined up. She's going to be so proud to wear them, isn't she? This gala was at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which is just a 90-minute drive from their casa. 90 minutes. They went all the way to New York for that catastrophe last week, but they couldn't even take a spin to the gala. Ooh dear, I bet the Disgracies are fuming. Because they obviously wanted the publicity. Whether it's good press or bad press, it's wonderful publicity for the Gracies, because who had ever heard of the Gracies, or who had ever heard of Glo Steinem and her award, unless you are of a slightly riper generation, who in their spring, summer, and perhaps many in their autumn season had heard of Glo Steinem. And it's no disparagement to the gal, but now her name has been on a few lips, as well as her dreadful awards. That is what Meghan is good for, and what she will be mine for, together with her husband, because it will attract some bums on seats to watch the show, to watch the spectacle, won't it? Wow. This time she just dialed in a message to them. No public appearance. Thank you to the Alliance for Women in Media Foundation for presenting this honour. This is a shared success for me and the team behind her, archetypes, most of whom are women. Sexist. And the inspiring guests who joined me each week. It was awful. It was a dreadful podcast. The 3-year-olds in my family could have curated a better show. It took squillions and gazillions of dollars to come out with that. When me and the likes of me can cobble something together with an iPhone and a bit of mascara and a clipboard and make something more riveting than that drivel that nobody would have watched if it wasn't for the fact that you married the Duke of Sussex and slagged off the entire family. And you were celebrated for that by the Disgracies. Best Entertainment Podcast. It makes you wonder what the competition was, doesn't it? Out of all the podcasts in all the world, the Disgracies thought that Archetypes was the best entertainment. Are they talking about the press that it garnered? Because that was quite entertaining, truly. Best entertainment. Don't pee on our leg and tell us that it's raining Gracie dear. Sophistry. Their Majesties the King and Queen are in Northern Ireland this week, and they were in Belfast yesterday, and I've got to say I was absolutely blown away. I became quite emotional at footage of them being greeted by the people of Belfast, and in particular the school children of Belfast. And I've got to say, for my Northern Irish fruits that are watching, any of you, particularly from Belfast, I suppose, and as I've said before, I've never been to the Emerald Isle. I've never been to Ireland. It's always something I mean to do. Every year, one of my closest friends is from Ireland and goes a lot, and we will be doing that eventually, but because it's so close, it's one of those places one never gets round to do it. Never been. Terrible. But I have got to say, what I saw, the children of Belfast, the people of Ireland, how glorious you are. I was so impressed by those children. Polite, intelligent, mature, engaged, glowing with health. They don't appear to be interested with any of this woke shame that we're told children are getting into these days. And there was a real healthy adulation and deference towards the King and Queen. Now, when I mention King Charles and Queen Camilla, I will often be accused of a little melodrama when I say, have you seen how beloved they are, the school children, or the children, you know, our King and Queen, they are so popular, they are so loved. And sometimes someone will say, don't lay it on quite so thick, River. I really think you're having it up a bit. And sometimes they might have a point. But actually, when you watch parts of this footage, can you really... Well, actually, I will play some for you now.
Did anybody shake hands with the King or Queen?
Yeah, they both shook my hands. Very excited.
Did you ever think you would meet a king or a queen?
No, never.
Who met the king or the queen?
Me.
How do you feel?
Happy. Excited.
You look as if you're in shock.
Yeah, I am in shock. Because I love the royal family.
Oh. What did he ask you?
If I was going to get my lunch. you can't describe it. He's just, you can tell he's royal. He was nice and everything. He was just he's just lovely.
I was really emotional, yes, to get to meet the King in person, and he was so personable. He talked to everybody. It was great to see. It was a real honour. Someone will remember for the rest of my life. Real honour.
I feel really happy, and it was a really exciting time. I've never done anything like this before.
Oh.
Yeah, me and Ruby were talking to the King. He said, were we going back to school? And we said, yeah.
What sort of bloke is he?
I really get that.
Have you met a king before?
No.
What do you make of this one?
Good.
It was amazing to see the King. I've never seen one before, or the Queen.
Did you shake their hand?
Yes.
Did you?
Which hand?
This one.
Anybody meet the Queen?
Me.
Oh my goodness. What was it like?
Really good.
Really good.
Really exciting.
Now you look me in the eye and tell me with a straight face that I have been exaggerating or have been melodramatic. You saw it for yourself. Yes, you saw the magic of royalty, the glee at touching a royal hand. It was so heartwarming. I had tears. I actually had tears. I just love it. It's so nice to see national pride and joy. Do you see how it is so good for us? It is so good for the people. That visit is so good for the people of Northern Ireland because it brings out good qualities in them, and it brings out community spirit and a sort of shared ideal. We all know that Charles and Camilla are two human beings, but especially through the eyes of children, you can sense the magic of royalty, which will last a lifetime, and those memories will last a lifetime. But it's about inspiration, isn't it? The inspiration of representing an ideal. And I was also very pleased to find that during interviews with the children afterwards, Charles was constantly referred to as the King. It's begun tripping off the tongue. It took us a while to get used to not saying Prince Charles, still stumble sometimes, and then King Charles, King Charles, King Charles, and now, people are now beginning to call him the King, and that is what will be usual and de rigueur for the youngsters coming through. That just as I grew up knowing the Queen, and my mum would say the Queen, it was never Queen Elizabeth, but now it'll just be the King, the King. So very nice to see. This jolly to Northern Ireland is part of Operation Springtide, the tour of the United Kingdom, in celebration of the King's coronation. And in Belfast, they celebrated community, entrepreneurship, and the flora and fauna. They had a splendid time amongst the flowering meadows of the Coronation Garden, and I absolutely adored what the Queen was wearing. I thought it was exquisite, that colour on her. And naturally she wore green again today, so I'm assuming it's a little tribute to the Emerald Isle. But what a fantastic shade it is with her. Goes very well, I thought. Like to see more of that on the Queen. She looked wonderful. And the school children were taking part in Coronation Microgreens horticulture projects. And at Hillsborough Castle, they met winners of a school bench competition. That was so much fun. And there was a garden party in the grounds of the castle. And on another sojourn to Newtown Abbey, the Queen was seen wearing a gorgeous, gorgeous white coat, another one that was very impressive. The Princess of Wales was out and about today looking chic and stylish in this McQueen number, beautiful pink there, and I love the way that she has buckled herself with that luxury belt, pearlised with that pearly palace gates of fair, wonderful around the waist. She was at the Foundling Museum as part of her work with the Early Years Project. She also spent quite a lot of time with Professor Green. He was actually the ex-husband or partner, I think it was ex-husband, wasn't it? That Millie Mackintosh, the one that was ghosted by Meghan. Well, they bonded talking about Trevor, Meghan's ex, and Millie's ex, which was this character, Professor Green, the musician, because he is a champion of her Shaping Us campaign. And he was brought up in kinship care, you see. Her Royal Highness met with people who have lived in the care system or with foster carers or adoptive parents. The Foundling Museum uses creative action, training and mentorship led by artists, musicians, writers and creatives to transform and improve lives of care-experienced young people. She also paid a visit to Kinship, St Pancras, meeting kinship carers and children, and they had a jolly time getting acquainted and playing together. I had a couple of comments from my Canadian fruits, my maple tarts, who told me that they had seen the Princess Royal during her visit to Canada this week, this 3-day trip to commemorate the 175th anniversary of the Canadian Hussars, a regiment of the Canadian Armed Forces of which she is Colonel-in-Chief. She visited Moncton and another Sussex, and she took part in a commemorative concert, a parade and gala dinner, where she was bestowed with a special military recognition. She laid a wreath at the RCMP Memorial and attended a reception at City Hall and an event at St George's Anglican Church. She wore a regal coat in Venetian red, and there were some blue elements to her dress as well to reflect the colours of the regiment, and in the evening she attended a performance of the youth orchestra. The following morning, hundreds lined the streets for a 21-gun salute and a military procession. Her Royal Highness also attended a private gala where she was invested with the Canadian Order of Military Merit. Well, there is so much crazy in the world, it gets crazier and crazier every week, but royalty remains. Royalty is steadfast, and I remain very proud of their service, their dedication, and their duty to us. I remain proud of Belfast, the people of Belfast, and of Canada for their warm welcomes to the King and Queen. And I remain in thrall and rapture to the spirit of the great, magnificent, eternal, and effervescently rocking Tina Turner. And for you, Tina, my dear, I wish every star in the sky, river deep, mountain high. Yes, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your company, and I will see you in the next broadcast. Feel free to leave me a juicy comment, and for those that ask, my Privy Purse is in the description box, and I thank you sincerely. See you next time, my dears, and toodle pip.